Code Word launch authority is confirmed. Awaiting your go order.
Recently, I've been playing through Black Ops Cold War, and while the campaign has its fantastic moments of Cold War espionage, the larger scale missions kind of fall flat for me. And I can't help but think, as I'm rolling through this campaign, what if the Battlefield franchise followed Call of Duty to the Cold War setting? Sure, Call of Duty multiplayer does have vehicles now, but they really feel more like kill streaks than actual support elements that your team actually has to work together to protect. And yes, Black Ops obviously has done it first, but I think the possibilities of this Cold War setting, if you look at games like World in Conflict and the amazing maps that that game had, applying that Cold War setting to a Battlefield game would be too good to pass up. Let's go ahead and dive in and look at why the Cold War might just make one of the best Battlefield settings ever, even if we don't get it in the next title. Now, before I give Treyarch too hard of a time for their vehicle sections in this game, I want to talk just for a minute about the things that Black Ops Cold War does get right. And top of that list is that feeling of thrilling Cold War superpower versus superpower espionage. The slower scale infiltration missions and spy missions, those are the ones that really excel in the Cold War campaign. At times you really feel like you're in either a Tom Clancy novel or perhaps in the Cold War spy film Bridge of Spies. The tension and attention to detail in these missions is fantastic, and again, those were my all-time favorite missions during the campaign, and I wish there were more of them. But in true Call of Duty fashion, the very thrilling espionage missions are about half and half with the more classic over-the-top Call of Duty mission set pieces, where you've got planes crashing, jeeps flipping through the air, slow motion pistol sections. You guys know all the Call of Duty tropes, and yes, they're definitely here in the campaign. Those just aren't the strengths of this kind of game, and I wish that they had left some room for more of those spy missions. But the absolute low points of the campaign for me were any of the large-scale vehicle sections. There's a helicopter flight segment of one mission set during Vietnam. I actually laughed out loud when it started because the helicopter physics are just so ridiculous, and I'm not going to claim that the Battlefield franchise has anything but a completely arcadey flight model for its aircraft, but this flight section in Cold War, guys, it felt like you were playing one of those turret games in an arcade. It was just such a stiff, awkward experience, and of course there's 1,000 things going on over the radio and explosions and pure chaos. And it's all just so very scripted too. Everything is a very careful set piece. Here's the thing though, guys. If the vehicle segments and the larger scale battles are the weak points of the campaign in Cold War, those are exactly the kind of scenarios that are the strong points of the Battlefield franchise multiplayer. All of those rather stiff and scripted epic events that happen in the Cold War campaign on these larger battle scenes, those are all things that happen in a large-scale Battlefield multiplayer match just naturally. That's why they have that kind of running deal of Battlefield moments. It's stuff that's just so crazy that actual players can pull off as they're fighting each other in multiplayer. As I went from the super slick stylization of Black Ops Cold War, the awesome work on the menus and the music and those spy missions, I go, oh man, I want this theme, this setting, all this work and effort and style applied directly to the Battlefield franchise rock, paper, scissors multiplayer gameplay formula. I want that. I want a Cold War Battlefield. A mid-Cold War setting for a Battlefield franchise would just be incredible, because it would solve a lot of issues with the franchise right now and some of the more recent titles. Let's look at Battlefield 4, for example, a game that many people love right now, but a game that for me was so overly crammed with gadgets and extra fluff that took away from the gameplay. There were so many remote devices and drones and lock-on weapons that it was just way too much going on for the Battlefield rock, paper, scissors gameplay to shine through in Battlefield 4. A Battlefield title set in perhaps, let's say, the late 1970s or early 1980s would help solve some of those overly technical gameplay issues that the last couple of Modern Warfare Battlefield titles had, that gadget glut, if you will. A good portion of the Battlefield fanbase does want a return to Modern Warfare, and a Cold War setting would give them a taste of Modern Warfare while keeping things a bit simpler gameplay-wise. And that setting would also bring back a lot of the classic vehicles that a bunch of us grew up with seeing on the news and in our toys. You guys remember Micro Machines? I had a huge collection of what I guess you could call Cold War Micro Machines. F-14 Tomcats, Humvees, M1 Abrams tanks. All of those classic vehicles and weapons would be amazing in a kind of Modern Warfare return for the Battlefield franchise. Like Cold War, you also have a ton of reference material to pull from to really make the setting pop. If you were to go full Tom Clancy Red Storm Rising, you could have some incredible, stunning Battlefield settings all across not only Europe and Russia, but perhaps even North America as well. You could get some Red Dawn inspiration going there, and perhaps a little bit of the classic RTS game World in Conflict, which feels odd to call that game a classic now, but I guess it has been over 13 years. That was a Cold War RTS game that again featured a Red Dawn-esque invasion of the US, and if a Cold War Battlefield title would go that route for a story, the settings that you could have for maps would just be awesome. I actually launched World in Conflict a couple of days ago just to go through the maps with the AI and remember some of these really neat locations that were in the multiplayer maps for this RTS game. You had stuff like a battle over New York Harbor with the Statue of Liberty in the background. You had rolling Central American plains and farmland. You had the Seattle Space Needle being the feature of one map, and even a hidden nuclear base in the mountains of Virginia, which was a map that I designed for the game back in 2007 and got added into the official game as an official map. And outside of all the American locations, even just the European map locations could be amazing. You could have massive battlefield tank battles in the Fulda Gap. You could have a space race battle over a Soviet launch facility, or a battle over the Berlin Wall, which could be perhaps a close quarters Spec Ops infantry focused map with a lot of flashlights and lasers and maybe even early night vision. You could have air and ground focused maps with fights over forward airfields. You could have revolutionary inspired maps behind the Iron Curtain where a group is rising up against the Soviet conglomerate. For the weapons, you could have a lot of the fan Modern Warfare favorites, but reduced from their overly attachment-focused setups in Battlefield 4 and even Battlefield 3 to an extent, with bringing them down to earth a little bit. More iron sights, more old-school surefire flashlight attachments, and that kind of thing. While it would be funny to see a more modern Battlefield have less attachments than Battlefield 5, a World War II game, did, I would still love to see them bring things back from the glut of attachments that the last couple of games have had, if it helps to refocus the setting and change the gameplay up a bit. And the more I've thought about it working on this video, guys, the more that I think it's actually at the top of my Battlefield franchise wish list, at least as far as settings go. Perhaps, maybe only second to a Return to World War II redone in a couple of years, just not before another 17 years goes by. Battlefield 5 had its moments, but it just was left unfinished and tried, I think, way too many new things. I'd love to see another World War II Battlefield title as well, but I would be very happy to see a Cold War one sometime in the future. Let me know, guys, down below in the comments what you think. Did anybody else have those same thoughts if you were also playing through the Black Ops Cold War campaign of, oh man, I wish we had a Cold War Battlefield game, or am I just the only one? For now, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed the thoughts. See you guys next time.